Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I'm just an ordinary guy who enjoys keeping things low-key. Despite being born into a wealthy family, I've always been the black sheep, the middle child caught between two extremes. But hey, at least I've got a decent brain and a streak of good luck that I try to capitalize on daily. Thanks to my parents' connections, I breezed through prestigious schools in our country, served in the military where I rose to the rank of captain, and eventually shipped off for college abroad. I've never been one for large social circles, preferring to stick with my close-knit group of friends. It's just how I roll. After college, I landed a cushy government job, you guessed it, family connections again, and a few years down the line, I leveraged my name to meet the right people and establish several businesses in our coastal city, the setting for this story. The seed money came from a combination of allowances, a modest inheritance, some smart investments, and a trust fund set up since my birth. My family's attempt to ensure I never sank low enough to embarrass them, despite my low-maintenance lifestyle. My businesses have been booming thanks to the steady influx of tourists, both local and international, drawn to our coastal paradise. Of course, it's not unusual to find locals mingling with the visitors, hoping to score a green card, pen pal, or potential spouse. Ah, the joys of coastal living. The incident. As the owner of these businesses, I've made it a priority to keep my staff on salary. It's the best way to provide them with benefits and makes tax management a breeze for me. Tipping isn't a huge cultural thing here, so it's more of a generous gesture than an expectation. My employees are covered by comprehensive medical insurance that includes dental and optical coverage, on top of the government-provided health care. While our public hospitals offer free services, the wait times for elective surgeries can be excruciating, so the additional coverage is a real lifesaver. By law, I'm also required to contribute to my employees' retirement savings, offer a minimum of 21 paid leave days, I give them 30, and provide paid overtime, unhindered medical leave for surgeries and serious conditions, which can be extended, as well as allowances for treatments like chemotherapy or dialysis. One of my longtime employees, a brilliant older woman who had risen through the ranks to become a manager adored by all, was scheduled for a hysterectomy. As she explained to me, her mother had passed away from cervical cancer a few years prior, and since she already had 4 children, this procedure seemed like the most logical step to reduce her risk. After doing her due diligence, she found a private hospital within our insurance network where she could have the surgery. On the planned date, she requested leave, but we promptly rejected it since this fell under the scope of medical leave. She went ahead with the procedure, which was a success, and had a speedy recovery. The hospital bill was supposed to be covered by our company insurance, and we had obtained all the necessary pre-authorizations. A few months later, she arrived at work looking utterly distraught. At first, we feared the worst, that she had received a cancer diagnosis during her follow-up tests, but the reality was far more infuriating. The hospital had billed her directly because our insurance had refused to pay, citing that the procedure was not covered under our policy. We were livid because we had meticulously dotted every I and crossed every T. I immediately dispatched my accounts manager to have a word with the insurance representatives as we tried to calm our employee down. The manager returned, seething with rage, and informed me that despite presenting them with evidence, the insurance people had simply brushed him off. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I personally visited their office. After making me wait for an hour, they had the audacity to inform me that the director from the head office, who happened to be in the area, had declined to meet me because he was too busy. I was absolutely incensed, so I decided to take my grievance directly to their head office in the capital city, a 2-hour flight away. Even at the head office, I hit a brick wall. They claimed that they had revised their policy, and the surgery was no longer covered. When I inquired about the revision date, they told me it had been a month prior. I pointed out that the surgery had taken place 5 months earlier, and we had all the necessary documentation. Their response? The policy change was retroactive for 12 months. Outraged, I questioned why I hadn't been informed of such a significant change, especially since I had held policies with them for years. Their nonchalant reply? They had informed their large clients and would let the rest of us know when our policies were up for renewal. Demanding to speak with their superior, the company's vice president, the CEO, was unavailable. I was met with a blunt and dismissive response that left me utterly floored. We're a large company, and we don't have time to argue semantics with low-end clients. If you don't like it, you can frankly leave and find a new insurance company. The revenge. If I had been angry before, I was now consumed by white-hot rage. In all my years, I had experienced disrespect, but this time, it had gone too far. In that heated moment, I decided to cut ties with them entirely. I flew back home, marched straight to the hospital, and settled the bill in full, taking the receipt to my employee. Despite her insistence on repaying me, I refused outright. This was in no way her fault, and I would be damned if she paid for something so far out of her control. After a few days to cool off, I consulted with my directors about switching insurance providers. Those dismissive words still echoed in my mind, and I wanted out. They explored our options with some of the major rivals to our current insurance company and discovered that it would take 6 months for a new provider to offer full coverage. The firm we chose, let's call them Nuco Insurance, offered us a far better deal than our previous one. Not only did they provide comprehensive coverage, dental, and optical, but they also included mental health coverage, physiotherapy and occupational therapy, rehabilitative services, mobility device acquisition, prosthetics and wheelchairs for disabled employees, smart cards for direct outpatient payments, like a debit card, a dedicated team of relationship managers, death and funeral benefits, an expanded coverage area, and coverage for up to 6 dependents plus a spouse. It would cost me a bit more, but at that point, I couldn't have cared less. The folks at our old insurance company, let's call them Old Co., seemed unfazed by my decision to pull my business. They likely thought I was just a small-time operator. Their confusion was palpable when I strode in with a team of people and boxes of documents. What they failed to grasp was that apart from the one restaurant, I also owned 3 popular bars, a cab company, a hotel resort, a cleaning service chain, several rental buildings in town and around the country, and a building and residential guard service. Their shock turned to awe, confusion, and panic when my lawyer revealed my true identity and family name. Cue the pleading, attempted negotiations, and profuse apologies. The news had even reached Old Co.'s head office, prompting the very director who had been too busy for me, along with their chief legal officer, chief financial officer, and company president, to make an appearance. Even their CEO, who was abroad at the time, made a personalized call in an attempt to salvage the situation. But no amount of sweet-talking could sway me, and within 6 weeks, we had completely severed ties with Old Co. It was now a waiting game until our new coverage with Nuco kicked in, and we hoped fervently that no one would fall ill during that interim period. But we were prepared, just in case. During that waiting time, and after our new insurance commenced, I shared the story with my friends and family during one of my holiday visits. My older brother's kids adore me, and my family has realized they were wrong to alienate me, now trying to re-enter my life. The aftermath. Inspired by my actions, my friends and family also pulled their businesses from Old Co. and switched to other insurance providers. The company took a massive hit, and when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, they were barely staying afloat. Old Co. eventually went into receivership and was acquired by none other than Nuco Insurance, their greatest rival. The directors and CEO received their golden parachutes and resigned, while most of Old Co.'s employees were fortunately retained, except for the senior executives, including those who had so rudely dismissed my manager. In a cruel twist of irony, the building that had housed Old Co.'s office in our town was sold, and if you haven't guessed it already, I was the one who purchased it. I decided to renovate the interior and convert it into a business rental space. All in all, it was a satisfying dose of payback, and wherever those disrespectful individuals ended up, I hope they learned that everyone deserves basic human decency. They are not above anyone else. Karma, as they say, is a cold and heartless witch. The next one is an entitled people story. I've lived on my family's land for as long as I can remember. My great-grandfather bought the sprawling property decades ago, and it's been passed down through the generations ever since. I always felt so lucky to have this little slice of countryside all to myself. The rolling hills and dense woods made it feel like my own personal sanctuary away from the noise and crowds of the city. When I was younger, I would spend hours just wandering through the trees or splashing around in the creek that ran along the edge of the property. As I got older, I started helping my dad take care of the land, mending fences, clearing brush, maintaining trails. We didn't have livestock or grow crops, but we took pride in keeping the place tidy and making improvements here and there. It was our special family tradition. So you can imagine how upset I was when a new neighbor moved in next door and started causing problems. The man's name was John, and right from the start he rubbed me the wrong way. He was one of those grumpy, nasty guys who always thinks he's right about everything. John had just purchased the plot of land bordering our property. I guess he didn't realize some of the land he thought was his was actually part of our family's property. The first hint of trouble came about a week after John moved in. I was out for my usual morning hike when I spotted him tramping through the trees near the creek. It was clearly on our land, a good 50 yards from the property line. When I called out to him, he snapped at me to mind my own business. Said he could walk wherever he darn pleased on his own property. I tried to explain politely that he was mistaken, even offering to show him the official survey stakes marking the boundary. But John got really angry and accused me of trying to swindle him. He stormed off, threatening to sue me if I ever interfered with him again. Things only got worse from there. Over the next few weeks, I caught John trespassing all over our land. He cut down several trees to improve his view, dug up wildflowers because he considered them weeds, and even put up tacky garden gnomes right next to the creek. Each time I confronted him, it turned into a huge blow-up argument. John refused to accept the property lines, insisting that he knew better. He said our family didn't deserve such a massive plot of land, and that he was simply reclaiming what rightfully belonged to him. I did my best to stay calm and stick to the facts, but John always twisted my words and tried to paint me as the unreasonable one. The final straw came when I caught John in the process of building a new fence several yards onto our property. He claimed he was just fixing the old boundary fence, but I knew he was deliberately trying to steal our land. When I told him to remove the fence immediately, John got right in my face and threatened to make my life miserable. That's when I decided enough was enough. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office and requested official copies of all the property records for our land. I wanted indisputable proof that the boundaries were exactly as I knew them to be. Then I hired a lawyer and had him draft a letter formally notifying John that his actions constituted trespassing. A few weeks later, we discovered John had completely ignored the warning letter. He was still tromping around on our property like he owned the place. Not only that, but he had convinced several of his buddies to start hunting there too. They left behind beer cans, garbage, and even damaged one of the picnic benches my grandfather had built. My lawyer said it was time to file a lawsuit. I'll admit, the idea made me really nervous. I had never been involved in a court case before. But the more I thought about it, the more angry I became over how John had taken advantage of our peaceful nature. He needed to face consequences for treating me like a doormat and trying to steal what belonged to my family. The whole process ended up being quite simple in the end. In court, John continued spouting his ridiculous claims about the property lines. He even had his pals testify as witnesses to back him up. But once my lawyer presented the official records, surveyor's reports, and my photographs documenting the trespassing, the judge made short work of John's scheme. In the end, the judge ordered John to pay damages for the trees he cut down and for pain and suffering resulting from harassment. He even made John pay our court and legal fees. But the sweetest victory was seeing the angry scowl on John's face when the judge told him in no uncertain terms to keep himself and his friends off our land. After the trial, my lawyer helped me file some more documents to secure our property rights. We posted fresh no trespassing signs along the boundary and even registered our land with the county sheriff. I decided that anyone crossing onto our property would be reported to the authorities and prosecuted. As I walked the familiar trails and hills of my family's land, I felt better than I had in months. John's ridiculous lawsuit was behind me at last. I could go back to enjoying my private sanctuary without looking over my shoulder all the time. It felt so good knowing I had successfully defended what was rightfully ours. I was proud to uphold my family's legacy, exactly as my father and grandfather would have done. In the end, John's greed and ignorance backfired big time. He lost money, credibility, and his false sense of entitlement. I hated that he forced my hand, but the ordeal taught me to stand up for myself and protect what matters most. John definitely got the message loud and clear. I haven't seen him anywhere near our property since. The next one is a petty revenge story. A couple years back, I, F43 at the time, went on a mini vacation to Palm Springs with a friend, F34 at the time. My friend wanted this trip to be a birthday celebration for me, despite the fact that it was a month before my birthday, and I actually hate celebrating my birthday. It also happened to be the second anniversary of my dad's death. which was incredibly traumatic for me. I'd just been through a couple of really rough years. We were at the ass end of COVID lockdowns. I was not feeling very peeply. All I wanted to do was escape my reality and get drunk while floating in the pool. One day we're at the pool and my friend starts talking to a couple, husband and wife. I'm trying to mind my own, but my friend pulls me into their conversation by telling them we're there to celebrate my birthday. They give me well wishes, and I join the conversation to be polite. Now, the resort we're at provides robes for all of their guests. These weren't the typical terry cloth bathrobes. They were more like a smock, similar to what you'd see people wearing in a documentary about a 1970s hippie cult. My friend started mocking the robes and saying all the guests at the hotel were going to be forced to join a cult in the desert. The husband jumps on this idea and decides it's a sex cult. He spreads his arms and walks toward my friend and I, saying, "Join us." It's funny. We all laughed the first time. Side note, while my friend and I are average-looking women, we're both heavily tattooed. Men seem to take more liberties with women like us. The amount of times I've been asked by men if I enjoy pain would make you want to set up camp in your local police station's parking lot and befriend your county's DA. Also, as a woman who spent most of my life on this planet, I'm very familiar with men being creeps. After he makes the joke a couple more times, it's not funny anymore. And his poor wife seemed to be getting uncomfortable. We carry on anyway, and we're having some normal get-to-know-you conversation, and they ask my friend if she's married. She tells them her husband passed away shortly after they separated several years back. Then they ask me if I'm married. I say I was, but my husband and I divorced, and he had also passed away recently. My friend and I hugged each other because it was a sad moment for both of us. I then turned to the couple and said, "We're the dead husband cult," and I walked toward the wife with my arms spread open and said, "Join us." Then I went back to my drinking and floating. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Anywho, like most public places, our library had a lost and found box. Located under the desk, people could ask, "Did you find?" But you know how that works. Until, as time marches on, we get a new boss. Karen seems overused, but since my post was removed for using an acronym, Karen it shall be. Karen did not like our lost and found setup. Instead, things had to go on a shelf behind the desk so everyone could see everything, and maybe remember that they had lost a particular item. This policy lasted maybe a week before we noticed a big problem. As public places tend to do, we attracted our fair share of idiots and a-holes, including Jim. He came in one morning and upon seeing this new shelf of treasures, immediately claims everything on the shelf is his. That glittery pink onesie, his. That well-used pacifier, his. That one odd glove that had been sitting in the box for months, his. We all knew damn well that it wasn't his, and said so. And every time Karen would override us, if he says it's his, it's his. Give it to him. Besides, he's clearing out this stuff, so who cares? Chao, the almost final straw. One of our regulars was a mom and her kid. Toddler age, could walk but had a stroller just in case. Usually well-behaved and always had Mr. Giraffe with him. And one day Mr. Giraffe somehow got left behind. We immediately called the mom. They hadn't even made it home yet, and Kiddo is having a meltdown. She says she's turning the car around and should arrive in about 20 minutes. No worries. We'll take good care of him. Showed Kiddo a picture of Mr. G checking out a book disaster averted. Or so we thought. Karen decrees that Mr. G be placed on the shelf with everything else. Just in time for a-hole Jim to spot it and declare it his. The entire building staff is yelling that it is not his. Mom is on her way to get it, etc. But Karen will not be moved. She hands it over anyway because he says it's his. Sure enough, Mom comes, and no Mr. G. But we know where he is. Someone gets Karen out of her office, and as a group, head straight for Jim. Demand he return the giraffe, and of course he has no clue what we're talking about. Strange thing about kids sometimes, they see closer to the ground. And sure enough, Mr. G is poking out of Jim's backpack. Kiddo grabs it with a shout of joy, and all Karen can do is stammer, but he said it was his, while the rest of us are saying, we told you it wasn't. Now you would think we're done, but we haven't gotten to the MC yet. Sorry, y'all. So get to the MC already. Shortly after the giraffe incident, Karen and Jim are still playing their games. Karen heads to a conference and leaves behind a very distinctive, very expensive-looking water cooler/tumbler. Bigger than a 1-cup morning commute mug, but not a big jug either, which, you can see this coming, Jim immediately claims as his. I swear he was almost hopping with glee at his latest find. A week later, Karen returns, only to find that Jim has her cooler. She tries to confront him, but all I have to do is say it's mine and they have to give it to me. That's the rule. We finally got our box beneath the desk that afternoon, and Jim had to describe anything he was going to try making a claim on. The next one is an entitled people story. I went out with my friends for my birthday too back in February. My one friend bought me lunch, 3 beautiful gifts that mean so much to me, and even a birthday cake. I was so surprised and I really felt so special. She even posted a lovely Instagram story about me. It was really the sweetest, most meaningful thing ever. As for my other friend goes, she attended my birthday celebration with me and my other friend. We all met up for dinner. My other friend didn't get me a gift, help pay for the cake, or dinner. I'm not looking for anything, and I'm sure I sound very selfish. But the thing is, my friend always spends so much money on her boyfriend, like she dropped $2,500 on his Christmas and birthday gift. No, I'm not looking for anything like that. My friend goes from spending so much money on her boyfriend to getting herself in financial problems and constantly getting her card declined. I'm so confused by her financial situation. TBH, I'm pretty hurt that she didn't get me a gift. I'm not looking for anything crazy, but just a token of appreciation will be nice. So the thing is, my friend's birthday is in June, and she's already planning for her birthday. I think my friend, the one that gave me such a lovely gift, cake, etc., will probably pay her half for dinner, get her a cake, etc. I don't know if I would be horrible for not buying her a birthday gift, but I would feel so bad not covering her half of dinner and help pay for the cake if my friend does that for her. My friend is already talking about going out for her birthday dinner. She's already making plans and suggested that we have to go out for her birthday dinner, which I don't mind going out for her birthday, but I don't want to be expected of paying for it. I'm really not looking for anything expensive, but I wish she at least made me a card or get me a little gift for under $10. In a way, I know she has money since she buys everything for her boyfriend, and she's always spending money on anything and everything. I feel so conflicted of what to do when it comes time. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.